And I think we are on online, 25th March. Two guys with spare time talking about basketball again. I'll let you take over, man. You want to talk about March things? Is that correct, man?
Yeah, so it's March Madness in college. Not that I'm too up to date with college, but you think about the college season and they play a lot of games to get all these seedings, and then they go off and they do March Madness, and that's actually where the casual fans come in. That's where the gambling comes in. That's where the brackets come in. It's very, very interesting, and that's where all the upsets come in. And I was comparing it to the in-season tournament where they did have those one and done eliminations, but the issue was is that their bracket was really small. Like it was what, four teams from each conference, and then they got here. And I was kind of thinking, is there a way that they can structure it so everybody is in the bracket from the get go, and the entire in season tournament, based off their wins, losses, etc., and creating consolation ladders and all that jazz, is just this extravaganza for 2 weeks. There's just a bunch of games, and it's the December madness for the NBA, and they just slowly progress towards the same product that they were going to progress towards. But instead of doing those random four regular season games to get their seeding that had these rules that were a little bit confusing what night they're on, you just for 2 weeks it's December madness, and you play off, and Charlotte could win something for once.
I feel like there's a lot of logistical stuff that would happen there, right? I guess I'm actually like you mentioned, I'm not that familiar with March Madness. Is that all at one location?
No. So I believe the tournament games are played at a couple of campuses, and then that's like it ends up being at a home court, depending on who wins.
But are they all in the one city, or is it sort of
No,
all over
I think it's
the
all
states?
over.
Okay.
So
So are you proposing the same thing that you're just saying that hey, we'll play all our games together, but at different venues, but in a more condensed schedule versus the more spread out one that they're currently running at the moment for the in season?
yeah, so let's pretend, excuse me, let's pretend that just follow along with these four teams. So you got A and B play and C and D play. Winner of A and B play each other. Sorry, those two matchups play, and the losers play. So then you're still getting your regular season count games, but they're all leading towards the March Madness of it. And so the consolation rounds are just normal regular season games, and then there's pumping towards that, or you halt it. And so what you do is, there's 2 weeks of dedicated time slots where the winners play first, and then March Madness or December Madness ends, and then the losers backfill their games to make sure that they get their quota. So if you win the tournament, you actually inadvertently get a longer break, because let's say the tournament goes over 10 days. If you win that tournament, you might get a 10-day break because the other teams have to catch up to play the rest of their games. Obviously, you're not wrong though. There is a logistical aspect of getting the arenas booked and having all that kind of aligned, and that might be why you need a neutral site. But if you told me, hey, go to Vegas and there's NBA games on from 10 a.m. in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, um, there's definitely a lot of marketing that can be done around that. That's quite positive, and the tourism that can be generated. So
I think it's an interesting proposal. And are you saying that every team would then end up playing some level of finals in a knockout sort of bracket? Is that what you're suggesting?
Um, like only the winning teams, right? So like, with 30 teams in the league, it's where it probably falls apart, and it's actually a reason why the expansion needs to happen. So you get 16 in each conference, but you would go from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. So they'd end up playing 5 games, kind of similar to what they're doing currently. But push it so that there's an actual, I guess, one and done elimination. The stakes are a little bit higher, because there was a situation where some of the in-season tournament games didn't matter for some teams when they were doing the seeding, but they also are a bit confusing. So I reckon the elimination style format the whole way through might be a bit more intriguing.
So I think you're sort of saying that because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the top four teams go through from each division into literally a semi-final, then a grand final. But you're sort of saying expand that out to 16, so 16, 8, 4,
Would
2.
just let everyone in from the start, like it is currently. Like the way that it works currently, they put them into these random groups, and then they play their pool games to then end up in the final eight, because it was 8 teams that went to Vegas. And I'm just saying, just open up to everybody. Everybody's in from the get go, and it's one and done games, and there is no, you want to talk about competitiveness. Well, we saw the success of the in-season tournament when it was down to the elimination games. So I reckon just doing it the whole way through makes it a bit more interesting, intriguing. You get upsets, you get Nuggets losing in the first round, and everyone's like, "Oh, what does this mean?" And your clickbait that you get out of it's fantastic. You know,
I think it's an interesting proposal, man. Like I said, but look, reality again is that there's probably 100 ways you could try and structure the in-season tournament or restructure the in-season tournament. Um, I don't necessarily know if this way would be any more intriguing because the Nuggets losing in the first round in an elimination game, you'd shrug it off and just go, oh well, they lost the game, right? I think that's the level of investment into a game. That's why when you play a one game, this play is similar to like the All-Star game conversation we're talking about. Yeah, a month ago or so now that it's one game. So you play one game and you go, oh well, you lost one game. Yeah, people lose a game. Yeah, teams all lose a game at some point. That's the reality. But I think there's a level of now, let's say, and even this season, we probably noticed this in the in-season tournament. Some of the better performing teams didn't necessarily go as deep as you might have thought they might go. Yeah, it wasn't like a Boston Nuggets in-season final, okay, in that sort of sense. And in part, their records during those key in-season games were not did not get them to the finals. But again, people sort of collectively shrugged it off and said, look, they didn't really get those, they didn't win those games, so be it. The Pacers did win those games and they got all the way there, even though they're not really necessarily like a championship contender in that sense, nor are the Lakers, obviously. So I guess I think again, it's just a level of investment that just needs to continue to build up in what's at stake here. And maybe that's something that has to organically happen as well. It's not just like throwing money at it. It's like something has to be at stake here that's meaningful.
yeah. Look, I don't think I'm trying to make it more meaningful. I think I'm actually just trying to make the product more concise and entertaining for everybody along the way.
Which I guess in that sense, with the product being entertaining, man, I said I wanted to talk about gambling. I don't know if you see the sort of article this week. One of the coaches was obviously sharing with the media that he was getting threatened over gambling lines and stuff like that. I must say I don't gamble on games. I don't think you do either. It's probably not really our forte that we actively, place bets on sports in any way, shape, or form. But it's an interesting aspect here of where the NBA is going. And literally the article, if you haven't seen it, or anyone that I guess is listening here, is that this coach was getting threats from, I guess, bettors, okay, that if, I guess it's like a plus under 10 margin or whatever, 10 and a half, okay, and therefore every point mattered. So in a blowout, you're sort of like, you don't want to go, plus minus 10 and a half or 20 and a half or whatever you're sort of setting your bet at, because then obviously you're ultimately winning or losing that bet and that whole sort of set of bets that you're making in that sort of sense. And I guess I don't know, man. I'm not. I must say, again, I can see the business aspects of gambling, but it feels like gambling is such an unnecessary part of sports. Yeah, take away the business aspects, it just puts so many more elements to it that, and just human nature, man. This is not shocking that this article has now surfaced now after this few years that gambling has really come at the forefront of NBA, for the NBA, that this sort of stuff is happening now. And it's only going to take that one guy now decides to step on the court and actually then confront a coach potentially.
Yeah, look, never get in the way of somebody's money. And you wonder, like, not to get too deep with it, but you wonder if you think about the global kind of financial crisis that everybody's acknowledging. People are turning to gambling as a way to get ahead, because there's no other ways to get ahead. So that might be an aspect. But what you're referencing, it's all about multis in Australia or parlays in America. And that's about stacking your bets. So it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I think they're going to win or I think they're going to win by this much. It's about doing as many different things to increase your odds and make it better. And so I've seen this around before. There's YouTube videos dedicated to this. Like, oh, it's a bit sus. Like there was that Brooklyn and I think Detroit game or Indiana game where they just missed all these free throws at the end.
Mm.
That was very uncharacteristic for the people shooting them to keep the margin at 6 or something. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories on that front. Even Gilbert Arenas, I remember listening to one of his pods. He was talking about how in their contracts they have these kind of gambling stipulations where they need to shoot a certain percentage or average a certain amount, and it actually changed the way that certain players interacted with the game because they refused to shoot threes because their 3 point percentage by that
Yep.
stage in the season was
Yep.
good, and they didn't want to jeopardize that money. So you are right. Like I think this does play a part of it. Will we ever see it escalate to something ridiculous? You'd hope not.
I,
You want that competitiveness to stay at the core, but
I think there's a few aspects here, and it's funny you mentioned the Gilbert Arena sort of clause in, I guess, potentially his contract, and I imagine many other players have performance, I guess, clauses within their contract, and if it's that's tied against like percentages or something along those sort of stat lines, that's the part where I guess as like a casual player, you've got 5 seconds less on the clock, you're just going to fling up a three because why not, right? Hail Mary. But every one of those shots matter for these players. It's like if I don't think I'm going to hit it, why would I reduce my percentage by adding another miss, and that can cost me money and so on and so forth. Which is a similar thing I hear like you're sort of talking about. I'm glad someone has a bit more betting terminology than me here, but I guess it's I think the part where I was mentioning that would hate for this to end up with a confrontation with a coach or potentially player even, and that probably is a much more likelihood in a basketball arena than any other sport. Now, because you think about that, right? It's a real intimate setting where the fans sit in the stands. They sit courtside, literally meters from the players. Okay, and like I said, some of these bets people put down a lot of serious money, and in line to win a lot of serious money back. Yeah, I've seen sort of those crazy sort of wins, right? Um, and and yeah, it's a real easy access to players and coaches and to the court in that sense. And yes, there's security. Don't get me wrong, but it's still different to like say a footy field, soccer field, a baseball, sort of field, horse racing, or motorsport, any of these things. Yeah, you can bet on all these things, but how do you get access to that? Damn it, I want to go get in that coach's face if you have to like jump down 3 meters into the arena and run, 50 meters to get over there. Yeah, that's a different situation. Yeah, look, and to a certain extent, it's probably inevitable that some idiot at some point decides to cross the line here, and betting is the motivating factor here.
well, we've had players rush the court before. We've had players who get close to the stands have interactions with fans before. Um, you know, yeah, I guess law of averages, something will eventually occur with this. The betting in the NBA, I think, especially because it's become more legal across America because of the digital aids, like the state laws don't apply if you're using an app from a certain state and all this jazz. It definitely will motivate people to do things more. But there's so many moving parts in basketball. I've looked at some of those multi slash parlay bets, and it's like you're essentially trying to guess fantasy stat lines across multiple players to even have a decent return. Like, let's say, for example, Lakers and Indy played today, and I'm like, oh, Lakers will beat Indy. At bet, like, it doesn't matter if you pick Lakers or Indy, you're not going to get more than $1 per dollar you put on. Like, really, it's always chump change. So then you have to go, oh, well, I think AD is going to have 15 rebounds or more, and I think
Mm-hmm.
LeBron's going to have 30 or more. And you need to do that to suddenly get a 1 to 10 ratio. It's like, well, every dollar I put on, I could win 10. Um, but yeah, like, I think the issues surrounding gambling, I think every sport deals with this a little bit. I think it makes a lot of people money. In terms of the reason why people do it, it's to feel alive. It's to have some stake in the game. That's why they do it. All right, because it's not enough to watch your
Well,
team
if
play.
you're gonna, and I'm not saying this is ever gonna happen, and nor am I necessarily advocating for this, but I think it's all the fine lines now that you know that you can bet on, because you can bet on every single aspect of a game, right? I guess if you were to go back, I don't know how long, you could probably go. It was a simple bet of win or loss. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm betting my team's winning, I'm betting my team's losing, and that's a pretty straightforward outcome that's determined on at the end of the game when there's no time left on the clock. But now the issues here are like margins and score lines and all these things. So it's not one thing to be happy that my team's won by 10, but I needed to win by 12. Yeah. Okay. And why didn't they just take that last second shot? They had the ball, but they held it. That just cost me 100,000 K. Yeah, yeah, that sort of situation potentially. And I think that's a real interesting aspect that Yeah, look, I guess sport betting has taken to a whole another level now in today's day and age. And look, like you said, makes it exciting. You can do all these crazy stuff, and then potentially win a lot of money back. And you have to do a lot of crazy stuff to win a lot of money back, because just like you, man, as a not like a frequent sort of person that puts money on anything, sports wise especially, it's like you look at your returns and go, why would I put down $10 to win 15? Why would I put down, it's like not even many
Mm.
point. I just go, I might as well just, yeah, it's not even worth my effort. So you got to put down at $10 to win 100. Now it's worth my effort, but then your risk increases tenfold in that situation as well.
Yeah, and look, I think the other thing, you hope that people don't come after players for these kind of things because it ultimately falls down to life happens for these athletes, these people, and also they're designed so that you lose. There's not many, like, the funniest one to be specific, Ant Edwards left the game to go witness the birth of his child.
Hmm.
That screwed up all of his stat lines. So if you bet on him that day to have his normal 20 or 25, you unfortunately picked the wrong day because his child was born and he left the game early. Um,
You
you
should
know,
bet under 25, yeah? If you bet under 25, and
if
that's
you bet
below
under
his average, he's having
25,
a bad game then,
then
right?
you were tracking the pregnancy well
Yeah.
and you guessed the right date of birth. It can be as ridiculous as you want it to be. I think people need to understand if you want to gamble, um, you are hoping and it transitions for us because both of us, as we are entering the second week of our first round of the playoffs in fantasy, we are hoping that people do what they're supposed to do. Nobody gets injured, and we hold the categories we're trying to hold, and we progress to the final round.
Hey, look, I think we'll come back to the fantasy stuff in a little bit, but I actually jogged my memory. You jogged my memory. There's two things I want to ask you. One is a real quick question, and another one's a broader conversation. I think that I'd love to hear your opinion on. Okay, the first one here. I feel like you're an ex-ref, all right, from many years ago. Yeah, is it not basketball refereeing 101 that when a player goes up and gets blocked and catches the ball after getting blocked and lands, that's a travel?
That's FIBA. It's a really simple conversation. We don't need to waste time. It's FIBA versus NBA. I don't know
What?
why NBA does jump ball. It's FIBA.
Okay,
Like
so
FIBA is a
so
travel.
FIBA, it is a travel, correct? Because
Should be,
I
yeah.
guess in part that jogged my memory this weekend. I witnessed a game where it felt like a 101 and the player got blocked, grabbed the ball, and then it was play on. What? The-
The only way that that works, if I took a shot attempt, ball leaves my hand, and then it gets blocked back into my hands and I land with it, that's actually okay because that's treated as a missed field goal and a rebound in a
but if it
sense.
has not left your hand,
If you block me and you kind of keep it pinned against me, then yes, it should be American jump ball or FIBA travel. Like it's
so
the
so
default.
so the referee's defense would be, oh, I saw it leave his hands an inch, so now it's technically play on. Is that potentially his case to me?
Well, it probably like it opens up a bit of a like what if you deflected a ball and pinned it against somebody who kept running? I don't think it'd ever happen, but would that be a travel then? Because it's kind of the same way. It's just not up and down. It's running along.
So whose possession is that in? Is that what you're saying? Maybe it's the
Well,
guy
in
that's
that
pinning the ball. He's
situation,
in possession, so it's travel on him.
that might be the NBA logic because I'm thinking about it. If I'm dribbling the ball and you knock it into my leg and I get it stuck as I walk, then if you kept your hand on the ball, it would potentially be a jump ball, but it could also be a travel. But ultimately, what you're referencing is a no call, which is not correct. So I can at least confirm that they should have done something.
Something. Fair enough. Look, anyway, we could debate referee calls all night, right? I think that's the reality there. The other one I wanted to actually, a different game, I think this weekend. I had a parent actually come up to me at the end of the game, and we had a bit of a chat, and it was an interesting situation. And I guess as a ex-coach as well for yourself, I'd love to hear your take here on this area. And I think we talked about it before, but yesterday, and this is junior basketball, obviously, there's not pro league or anything crazy like that. And unfortunately, this is at under 18s level, but unfortunately, we did not run a shot clock yesterday, would have sort of reduced this situation, which was supposed to, but we didn't. Okay, so that's again a referee conversation. But what happened here was that we were in a game and we were down by 10 at that point. Yeah, okay, we're down at 10 at that point, and the other team decided with a minute left they would stop playing. Yeah, yeah, and okay, sure, but literally stop playing. Like here, we've advanced the ball over half court. and now we'll just stand here and dribble the ball on the spot. And then we're like, okay, there's like literally like 58 seconds to go here. That's not one shot clock possession. That's what I'm saying, right? At least if you want to run out your shot clock and take a shot clock violation, well, I guess so be it. Yeah, that's your choice. Yeah, but you've stopped the game now for literally 10% of this last quarter, all right, and you've decided not to play because you're up by 10. Um, in that sense. Now, at that point, my team then decided to also just follow their lead. Well, that's convenient. I'm talking about my players on the floor, obviously, yeah? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I get it. We're down by 10, a minute left. Our odds are not in our favor. And that's fine. I get that. But, I didn't necessarily say, let's pack it in right now, nor did I wave the white flag. Now, ironically, this guy then dribbled off his foot and it went out of bounds. Yeah, okay, and so there was like 50 seconds left, and it was our possession. All right, and then at that point, we obviously inbounded the ball, and then we decided to follow our lead again. That well, you chose not to play, so we're going to return you a favor not to play either. Um, what? Okay, and at this point, it actually turned to a real sort of awkward spectacle for everyone involved. And that's probably in part why this pairing came down. We had it was a great chat actually. And I sort of said, I was very clear, and you're probably gathering from my tone here. I'm a total advocate of playing to the end. Yeah, I'm a total advocate of playing to the last 10 seconds, yeah? I'm not talking about even the last 24 seconds. I'm talking about the last 10 seconds, okay? And sure, it's 10 seconds, 10-point game, result is done. I'll probably subscribe to that too. Sure, okay? I guess I'm really curious your thoughts here. How would you have felt if you were at that game as, say, a coach, or maybe as a spectator or parent potentially? And more so here, when did basketball turn into this etiquette component here that has now taken a whole nother level to it? There's one point to not play a last possession, and I'd say that's up to 24 seconds. Yeah, okay. But it's another aspect to not play a whole minute. Hell, well, you're up by 15 with 3 minutes. Let's just stop playing then too. Why don't we just, and we'll just return you the favor if we were down too. Like at what point do you draw the line? I don't know. Like I guess this is the topic.
So as a referee, I actually saw this happen once when in a grand final. Team was up by 10 points and it was about 5 minutes to go on the match and they dribbled it across half and they just stood there. And there was this awkward standoff where nobody wanted to do anything. And then eventually the defensive team fouled, but it took 2 minutes.
But isn't the
Now,
isn't the losing team? It's a clear objective still
correct.
at that point.
Correct. That would be the thing. So first off, there is actually a rule in FIBA. If you defend a defender for 5 seconds and they actually make no legitimate attempt to beat the defender, even while dribbling the ball, it can actually be classified as holding the ball in like
I've seen that.
basketball
I've seen that.
terms.
Yep.
So your team should have been encouraged to play defense because they could have actually forced a turnover in this situation. Um, and they need to pass it around and make legitimate attempts at playing. There are actually rules in that, but if both teams stand apart from each other and no one wants to do anything, then the referee is not obligated to do a thing. In terms of the etiquette of it, well, 10 points is like, I think the way that I'd frame it, junior basketball, whether you be in a blowout as the team that's blowing out or the team that's losing or in a close game or a margin, it's always a learning curve and it's always a chance to practice something. So in that situation, what would you do? Well, here's a chance for us to practice our late game execution, as in we are going to lose this game by 10, but what if we fouled, force them to the free throw line? How fast can we get a shot? And we could probably, let's say we foul and it's 55 seconds. Can we get the ball down in 7 seconds and get a shot? Because now what we're doing is we're not trying to win this game. We're trying to actually run things that we could work on in training or things that could pay off in a future game where it's 2 point margin.
I, I,
So
I love your.
that would be my coaching suggestion.
I love how technical you're getting here for this last 60 seconds. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to disagree. I'm gonna say that after many years of coaching now, that would never happen in that sense. However, I would simplify that as to, hey, could we trim a 10-point margin to 6? Yeah, like to me that would be at least our objective there. Can we at least trim a 10-point margin to 8 or drill a 3 and make it 7? Yeah, that
Well,
that
that's the
to me
thing with the
that
3 point shot.
yeah.
It's three shots to make it an interesting game, and especially at a junior level, free throws are never a certainty. So fouling,
I
putting them at the free throw line, and taking some threes. You could get lucky. You can make something happen, but
look,
you still need to
I
try to
I'm
make it
I'm
happen.
not gonna disagree either with there still remains a probability of a win while there still is time on the clock. Yeah, hence Tracy McGrady, right? Those sort of situations. Yeah, but look, I think the point here is that I would have personally liked to have played all the way to the end, or at least the last 10
Mm.
seconds. And that's what I expressed at the end of the game to not only this parent, but also to the players. But I also understand their response effectively to me was, oh, but we stopped playing because the other team stopped playing. Wow, well, if the other team's terrible at shooting threes, should we just copy that too? Like, you know what I mean? That was sort of the sort of first thought in my head, just because what they did doesn't necessarily mean what we want to do. But there's turns, and it was at the end, the last maybe, let's say, 20 seconds was probably the most awkward because obviously we've now slowed the game down for like literally 40 seconds here, which felt like an eternity to a certain extent. And they were like, no one wanted the ball. Yeah, some players were probably like, oh, I wouldn't mind shooting a three, but no one really wanted to. If you were that player that shot a three, you might be the one that now no one's going to be a friend for the rest of the week or something like that, and you're being unfollowed on social media. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure what the repercussions would have been in that situation, but I guess you've seen it even in the NBA. Yeah, that player went and took a dunk at the end when they're already up by double digits, and then the other team's getting in the face because they didn't like that. What was there not to like about that? He's just playing basketball because there's still time on the clock, but that was disrespectful. Is that what it comes back down to? And maybe again now as we're leading into this sort of area here, are we getting to this politically correct conversation as well? Is that what it is now? Like everything needs to be politically correct. So if you're winning by double digits already, that well you can't win by another 2 points there because that would be disrespectful at that point.
Well, I guess it's sportsmanship. That's how it's kind of been laid in the etiquette. I actually always thought that they taper off in the NBA because like because the margins defined now, as in the result and foregone conclusion. They just don't want to risk getting hurt. Like they don't want to do anything stupid. But
Remember that situation a little while ago? Was it Pelicans? Was it Suns? And
yeah,
Zion went
yeah,
and dunked it at the end. And was it because you dunked it? What if you took a layup? Would anyone have had an issue if you just took a layup, gotten 2 more points,
yeah.
and
You
so
see it all the time, though.
yeah, and then obviously I think your bench cleared out and got in his face, and there was a whole blow up over that in the situation because they didn't like that. That was not the right thing to do. But again, this is the point. Like we played basketball 15 years ago, yeah, and no one thought twice about that. Yeah, 15, 20 years ago, no one thought twice about that. You would just go and play. You would play to the buzzer ended, and that would be it. And you didn't think about it. And then at what point and who? I feel like now this is where we need that stat guy, right? We talk about every week. Pull up first. When was the first game in the Pro League, no doubt, that someone started to hold the ball up from an etiquette perspective, and then it started to trigger this? Because someone had to have started this. Yeah, because and now
Well,
look
see,
at
I
what it's
always
become.
thought, let's say it tracks back a long time, because I feel like it's happened even in the 80s and 90s when you see footage. I actually always thought it was the winning team kind of doing it as an opportunity to celebrate, right? So to actually celebrate while the game's still running, as in, let's say the NBA Finals is a foregone conclusion. They dribble the ball up. They get 8 to 10 seconds where people can start to build that real rev and cheer and then go for it, as a way to kind of celebrate. But it's the winning team. It's normally for the winning team. It's never for the losing team. So the fact that your team dribbled it across half just to hold it anyway, pretty funny. But
Look, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous. I think from a pro level, man, I've seen it happen maybe up to 48 seconds. That's literally one team taking a shot clock violation, and therefore
yes, I've seen that before.
approximately 24 seconds left, perhaps for the other team, and then that's sort of like that's like one possession each team, and that's wrapping it up.
Mm.
But yeah, look, anyway, it was an interesting situation, and it's sort of what basketball is now for in 2024. I think it's not something that I'm necessarily going to resolve as a coach that implore my players to insist they play out to the end or drag all their asses because they've stopped playing for the last minute, even though they're down by 10 points or something along those lines. Yeah, so, but yeah, like, look, talking about playing down to the last minute, man, I wanted to ask you a question in Fantasy League now, hey? Yeah. You're obviously trailing right now, 1 week down, 1 week to go. It's 2 weeks obviously for playoffs right now in your matchup. 5-4, yeah, very close, very close. Yeah, I was having a look at the stats today. And points looks like your key category here. My question to you is at what point do you start to go, oh no, I need to make some crazy adjustments now? or I might lose this semi-final and not make the grand final. Is that Thursday?
Um, obviously, you just need to win 5-4. That's what you need to do.
Yep.
And so
And that's
my
what your
category,
opponent needs to do too. They only need to win 5-4-2.
correct. So currently, the biggest challenge for me is I'm probably not going to win percentages. I really haven't won percentages for a good while now, and I'm not going to win turnovers. So I know that there's four categories that unless the other person does exceptionally worse than me, I will lose those. So it's points, and really that's what we're talking about currently. You're stressed, or you're putting things in the group chat that you're now back in for the finals occasion. About 29 points. And what I'm going to tell you right now is that tomorrow, when I have a full squad and some guys sitting on the bench, he's got three guys playing. And I just need to catch up on points because my rebounds, my assists, my steals, my blocks are all very far ahead. I just need to catch up on some points. I feel like tomorrow, if we were doing a pod, I'm 100 points ahead by this point. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm
Correct,
not too
correct me if
stressed
I'm wrong
anymore.
though. This is how fantasy sometimes works. Is like you may have a full lineup tomorrow, and therefore, and then Wednesday he has a full lineup, and you're only fielding five guys yourself then. So that's the real, you know,
I think tomorrow,
situation.
I'm looking at it like this. Tomorrow, I'm going to have probably 200 points
Yep, yep.
because
Fingers crossed.
because of that. And then the only decision that I'm making is how bad do I want my percentages to be? Because I can basically have two guys on the bench right now. So who do I put on there who I don't think is going to be worth having on? I'm going to make that decision tomorrow morning because Victor is currently listed as day to day. So maybe he won't be playing anyway. So I might as well just get him out of there.
First thing
Do I
before
take
work,
off?
check the fantasy.
Do I
Is that
take
right?
off Evan Mobley because he's playing a back to back after just coming back from an ankle injury? So those are the decisions that I'll make. I was a little conscious. Can I try to chase the percentages a bit? But ultimately, I'm pretty confident I'm going to get those points and I'll be perfectly fine. And
So
then you
so
just hope for the
let me
best for next
refine the
year.
question then. What if you're still trailing points on Saturday?
If I'm still trailing points
I
on
just giving you a
Saturday,
scenario here. What if you're still trailing points on Saturday? What would you do at that point? Fingers crossed for you, ain't right. but
well,
but
again, you've obviously let a lot of doubt seep into your mind, so that's the difference between you and me. But by Saturday or even by Thursday, like by Thursday, I'd make that decision. Yeah, maybe that is a situation where I drop one of the players that I'm confident aren't worth too much in the waiver wire, and I start doing the day to day trick, or especially with how many acquisitions we're allowed currently, I do two players. Like if I'm looking at it saying I need points. Cam Thomas is sitting there, so I chase Cam Thomas. If I just need to pick the best player each day, then I do that. Like I can do, still have options, but I think the thing is that talk to me. Look at it tomorrow. Look at it tomorrow. You tell me how things are going. All right.
special podcast tomorrow. If you're still trailing, I'll ask you the same question, and you'll give me the same response. But I can see every morning
Talk
now,
to me the next day.
fantasy before work. Is that what's going on now? It is playoffs, right?
You got to do what you got to do. Well, I mean, like if we're talking about matchups right now, you're a turnover away from being up 5-4. I don't think you should feel comfortable where you're at. You really are one category
No,
away.
I'm not feeling comfortable either.
Percentages.
It's really close, and we knew it was always going to be close, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, for you, you're 4 blocks ahead, you're 8 steals ahead, you're 20 assists ahead, and you're about 80 points ahead. But it really, for you, you could be a big day away. As in, if your opponent has a big day, then you're in a bit of trouble. There is a bit of an asterisk on yours. It's supposedly there's a couple of players that sat on the bench one day by accident, and they've missed out on some stats. So it could be a lot closer than it is. Could be a lot closer than it is.
If the other
So
owner doesn't know how to put their players on, that's not really my problem. Should I not play either because they didn't play their players? Maybe that's
maybe out of
etiquette for
respect,
2024.
maybe
I'll sub a few of
maybe
my
that's the
players off
etiquette
now.
you need to do. Yeah, maybe you should pull. Maybe you should have a day off and just see if you can even it out, so
Yeah.
you win. Because surely you want to win on merit. I'm telling my opponent to make sure he's changing his team. I don't want any excuses when I win.
Yeah.
So
I feel like since we're gonna wrap up this week on the etiquette conversation here, when your other opponent turns up with only four players, which you can start a game with four players, should you put five players on your team if you have your full team, or should you only play 4-on-4 at that point because that's good etiquette?
I think if you're confident, you play four. If you're someone who needs to play an extra player to get ahead, you do what you got to do. Win's a
Really,
win either way, isn't it?
really. So the other team couldn't bring the whole team. You've got your whole team. Let's say you got nine players. So you want to give everyone some minutes, right? They've all turned up, and it's a legitimate game because they got four, but they're under undermanned right now. So you think you should level the odds in the sense of good etiquette to only field 4-2? Because that's literally
I
what you're
just
saying,
think,
right? You're literally saying that that would be what you would do.
considering we're not talking about professional NBA games, but domestic games on a Wednesday night, yeah, why not? I don't know. Get everyone a run. Cardiovascular health is important. Okay, too many people
So,
in this
so let me
country
take
are
this to another
obese.
level. I want to take this to another level. I feel like you're opening a can of worms for me here, man. So let's say you're playing another player that can't go left. Does that mean you don't go left the whole game either?
I mean,
He can. I can go both ways, but he can only go right. So I'll just do the same thing as him because I'll just go
well,
right every single time.
does he have a disability that
Well,
prevents him from
he's
going
just
left,
he's
or is
just
he just not
crap. But
skilled?
because
Oh
he's
no, it's
crap, I'm
the
gonna be
skills are
crap too.
different.
I ain't got it. Well,
Skills are different.
what do you mean? The skills are different. Turning up is the same thing as a skill, isn't it? Turning up to your game is a skill. Yeah,
Nah,
yeah. You
not
don't
in.
think so?
There's a lot, maybe they've got mental health issues, man. I don't know. I don't like your tone, to be honest with you.
And let's be clear, if the commissioner can't field his players in a playoff, that I'm not having any empathy for. I'm so sorry. I'm not fulfilling the etiquette there from a Barca
You're a harsh
2024.
man. It's going to be an asterisk championship for you,
That's
maybe. That's
we've
what it's
lost all our
sounding like at
viewers
this
now.
point.
We're back to -2.
Oh,